It wasn't a war that ended Rome. It was time, silence, and slow forgetting. Tonight we remember what the world chose to forget. For centuries, Rome was believed to be eternal. A vast, sprawling empire, stretching its influence from the sun-drenched coasts of North Africa to the misty shores of Britannia, from the scorching deserts of the Middle East to the dense forests of Germania. Its legions, forged in discipline and experience, were considered unbeatable. Its laws, meticulously crafted, were seen as the very bedrock of civilization. And its ideas of governance, architecture, and even luxury reshaped the ancient world. It was a civilization that defined an era, a beacon of order in a tumultuous world, a testament to human ambition and organization. The very name Rome evoked images of power, permanence, and enduring glory. But even the mightiest oaks eventually wither. Even the most carefully constructed edifice can, over vast stretches of time, begin to crumble. Rome didn't fall in a single catastrophic blow, a sudden eruption of chaos that erased it from the map overnight. There was no single moment, no definitive year, no one battle that sealed its fate. Instead, its decline was slow, subtle, almost imperceptible at times, like sand steadily sifting through an hourglass. It was a gradual erosion, a compounding of weaknesses that, over centuries, undermined the very foundations of this colossus. Underneath the seemingly unbreakable facade of Roman power, beneath the gilded veneer of monumental architecture and imperial proclamations, a quieter, more insidious enemy was at work, a monstrous economic burden. Maintaining an empire of such immense scale was, by its very nature, incredibly expensive. Feeding its vast armies, building and maintaining its impressive infrastructure from roads to aqueducts, and sustaining the lavish lifestyles of its elites, all came at an increasingly unsustainable cost. Initially, the wealth of conquest fueled this engine. Gold, silver, and resources flowed in from conquered lands, keeping the coffers full. But as the empire ceased to expand significantly, this influx slowed. The engine began to sputter. Inflation, a corrosive force, became rampant. The Roman state, perpetually in need of funds, began debasing its currency, adding less precious metal to the coins. This meant more coins were needed to buy the same amount of goods, eroding the purchasing power of everyone, from the common soldier to the bustling merchant. Trust in the currency, and thus in the state, began to wane. Taxes, already high, were levied with increasing frequency and severity, crushing the spirit and the livelihood of the common citizen, especially the farmers who were the backbone of the economy. Many fled their lands, creating desolation in the countryside and overcrowding in the cities. The vibrant trade routes, once arteries of wealth, began to falter. Internal strife, piracy, and the increasing need to defend borders disrupted the flow of goods. Regional economies became more isolated. The vast wealth accumulated from earlier conquests and efficient taxation slowly dwindled, replaced by the crushing weight of debt and a widespread economic stagnation that touched every stratum of Roman society. This wasn't a sudden crash, a single market collapse. It was a slow, agonizing bleed, a chronic ailment that gradually drained the lifeblood from the imperial system. The very heart of the empire, its political core, began to beat erratically. The Roman emperors, once commanding figures who maintained a fragile balance, became less statesmen and more precarious figures, clinging to a throne that had become less a seat of power and more a death trap. From the infamous crisis of the 3rd century onwards, the imperial office became a rotating door of ambition and assassination. Generational leadership, the smooth transition of power that once provided stability, was replaced by rapid successions, often determined by military might rather than legitimate claim or inherited right. Civil wars, once rare and deeply disruptive, erupted with alarming frequency, pitting Roman against Roman, legion against legion. Each internal conflict drained the empire's resources, diverted its attention from external threats, and left lasting scars of division and distrust. The focus of those in power shifted drastically. Instead of governing the vast empire and enacting long-term solutions, their primary objective became simply clinging to power for survival. This constant, brutal struggle for supremacy bred widespread corruption. Loyalty became a commodity bought and sold. Bribery, patronage, and personal gain overshadowed public service. The very institutions designed to ensure justice and order became instruments of self-enrichment. This paralyzing political turmoil meant that crucial, long-term reforms desperately needed to address the empire's systemic problems were either never conceived or never implemented successfully. Successive rulers were too preoccupied with their own immediate survival to address the deeper issues plaguing the state. The confidence of the people in their leaders and in the system itself slowly eroded. The once unyielding foundations of Roman governance began to crack, silently yielding to the pressures of ambition and self-interest. The traditional narrative often points to the barbarian invasions as the primary cause of Rome's collapse, and indeed, the Goths, the Vandals, the Huns, and others played a significant role. But to view them as the sole destroyers is to miss a crucial truth. These external pressures were often simply taking advantage of an already weakened patient. Rome wasn't defeated by a sudden, overwhelming force, but slowly eroded by persistent incursions against a backdrop of increasing internal frailty. The sheer scale of Rome's borders, thousands of miles to defend, was a logistical nightmare. The legions, once the envy of the world, were progressively stretched thin, often comprised of less loyal mercenary forces or conscripts from recently assimilated territories. Their morale, their discipline, and their very identity as guardians of Rome were gradually diluted. The continuous cycle of border wars was draining resources and manpower that the empire could ill afford. More critically, the very spirit of the Roman citizen began to wane. The deep sense of civic duty, the fierce pride in being Roman, the willingness to sacrifice for the Republic or Empire, concepts once defining features of Roman identity, slowly eroded. Plagues, such as the Antonine Plague and the Plague of Justinian, decimated populations, leading to labor shortages, recruitment difficulties for the army, and a general sense of despair and apathy. The bustling cities, once centers of innovation and culture, began to shrink. The allure of the city waned as life became harder. This internal decline manifested in a lack of resilience. When faced with challenges, The imperial system and its people simply lacked the collective will and resources to respond effectively. The empire was not just being pushed from without by barbarian migrations and raids. It was, more fundamentally, collapsing from within, its infrastructure decaying, its population dwindling, and its collective spirit broken. The year 476 AD is often cited in textbooks as the fall of the Western Roman Empire. In this year, the last Western Roman emperor, a young boy named Romulus Augustulus, was deposed by a Germanic chieftain named Odoacer. Odoacer saw no need for a puppet emperor and simply sent the imperial regalia, the symbols of Roman power, back to Constantinople, the capital of the surviving Eastern Roman Empire. But by 476 AD, the empire in the West was already a shadow of its former self. Its territory had shrunk to little more than Italy. Its infrastructure was crumbling, its cities largely depopulated, and much of the administration had already devolved into local control. The act of deposing Romulus Augustulus was, in many ways, just a formal acknowledgement of a reality that had been unfolding for generations. It was the final, quiet curtain call on a long, drawn-out performance. The centuries following were often referred to as the Dark Ages in Europe, a period of fragmentation, reduced literacy, and economic localism. The grand Roman roads fell into disrepair, major cities shrank to mere villages, and the unifying force of Roman law and administration largely vanished. Yet the legacy of Rome did not vanish completely. Its influence, though transformed, permeated the emerging kingdoms of medieval Europe. Roman law, adapted and reinterpreted, formed the basis for legal systems across the continent. Its language, Latin, evolved into the Romance languages and served as the lingua franca of scholars and the Church for centuries. Its architectural marvels inspired new styles, and its very idea of a unified, powerful state would echo through history, inspiring emperors and kings, revolutionaries and nation-builders for centuries to come. The Roman Empire may have fallen silent in the West, but its whispers, its profound influence on governance, law, language, and culture, continue to resonate through the ages, shaping the modern world in profound and undeniable ways. It was not an end, but a transformation, a quiet dispersal of enduring ideas.